Looks like I was wrong about the 20th Century Fox thing. For this third installment, it appears this is where Universal took over. As such, the opening titles are back to familiar territory. For me anyway. With the iconic walking through the fog. However, this one has something a little different. A foreword, if you will. With the last two films being set in the 1800s, it appears that they wanted to assure the audience that the integrity of the character will stay, but the setting will be a little different. This time, the setting is in quote-unquote modern times, right in the thick of World War II to be exact. What's even stranger is this is based off a story written by Arthur Conan Doyle entitled His Last Bow. Other than that, it felt like Universal was out to prove they could do Sherlock Holmes justice, and boy did they ever. This movie moves like a bullet, and with each twist you get a little further to the edge of your seat. So, what's the story? In an attempt to intimidate England, there has been a mysterious broadcast from Germany. The voice is a prophet of several horrible events to happen to the country, secret bases being destroyed, supply lines foiled, food stocks in shambles, key infrastructure sabotage. I will admit the effects for some of these disasters looks pretty fake by today's standards. However, that is the beauty of practical effects, at least for me anyway. Even when they don't look great, you can tell you're looking at a real object. A great council has been formed in order to stop what has been dubbed the Voice of Terror. One suggestion is to bring in Sherlock Holmes. Several object to this, feeling embarrassed that they couldn't handle this themselves, and wondering what a private detective could do with such a case. It's during this argument that Sherlock Holmes comes in. After some deduction work, the council is sold on this idea. Just then, another broadcast comes from the Voice of Terror. This I'm pretty surprised they were able to get away with. The voice says that a passenger train full of Red Cross nurses and soldiers will be the next target. When we hear this.
Its whistle is screaming. Farewell, it is saying. Farewell. You have just heard an exact reproduction of the way it sounds.
Up until that exact recreation sound, I was honestly disturbed by this. The meeting is adjourned, with several members saying Sherlock needs to report anything and everything he finds on this case. He says he will keep them informed, but only when necessary. That night, Sherlock is listening to the radio and taking notice of how the sound changes through some sort of radar device, maybe an oscilloscope. I'm not really too knowledgeable in this field. Just then, the door opens to reveal a man stabbed. With his dying breath, he says, Christopher. This man, Gavin, was an accomplice of Sherlock, used to gain information from the underground. At this, Sherlock heads to the seedy part of town to try to gain information on this Christopher. Before going out, there is an odd scene.
No. Holmes, you promised.
I wonder if this was some sort of inside joke. Perhaps there was some sort of agreement that Basil couldn't wear this hat anymore? Or maybe it's more of a, we are in the 20th century now, Sherlock doesn't do that anymore. In the seedy part of town, not many like him down there, since he has helped incarcerate quite a few of them. Here, Sherlock informs Gavin's wife of his fate. At first, she doesn't believe him, but quickly finds that it's the truth. Sherlock is able to convince Kitty to avenge Gavin's death by looking into this Christopher. She asks around the local bar, but gets no answer since it's to aid Sherlock Holmes. However, she is able to convince them that this information is to take down the Nazis, which is an enemy to their way of life, both to them, to Sherlock, and everybody in England. After considering this, the forces of the underground band together to find this Christopher. The next day, information surfaces to an abandoned warehouse. There is one really good scene here I love to mention. On the way, they are followed. I love Sherlock's reaction.
Holmes, I think we're being followed.
Yes, I know. It's Lloyd.
Lloyd, how do you know?
He's so obvious about it.
With Lloyd with them, they find the warehouse has had a little work done to it. Also, who has a torch like this? torch is what the Brits call a flashlight. It just seems unpractical to have such a long stem for such little light. In the warehouse, they are ambushed by Meade. Even though this is built up as a grand reveal, this guy has never been seen before, so we as the audience can't have a aha moment. It would seem that the group is done for when the forces of the underground pin down these Nazis. In the scuffle, though, he gets away. I was quite relieved when he got away. I was really getting into this, and I didn't want it to end this quickly. Fortunately, that is only the first act in this drama. More than that, I feel would be spoilers, I think. I will mention one thing that I thought was a bit odd. At the very end, it would seem that the picture was not only to sell war bonds, but also boost morale of the Allied troops. All in all, I think Universal knocked their first Sherlock film right out of the park. While the setting is different from the first two, the integrity of the character of Sherlock and Dr. Watson are still intact, just as they were hoping. I also like the idea that even though the mystery is solved by the end, the main bad guy, the Nazis, are still at large, just planning for their next great scheme in the meantime. That's how I wanted Moriarty to be at the end of the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. One minor spoiler I do want to mention before ending. There's one scene at the end where Meade keeps eyeing a concealed weapon. I get the idea that they want the scene to be suspenseful, but it felt more like, come on already, that's the third time you eyed the weapon. If you're gonna shoot anybody, do it now. This is the best opportunity. Join me for the next adventure, The Secret Weapon. I'm very curious to see if this will also be Sherlock helping out with the war effort again. If so, I have high expectations after this one.